Okay, Shalom, Shalom, it's the brother Kadash. Want to start off by giving our praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders. Peace, blessings, and honors to all the brothers in the truth. So this is part two of I call it the Doomsday. Part one is the book of Zephaniah, and then this part two is called the Doomsday. Part two, the book of Second Esdras, because are the main books I'm coming in for this precept. So once again, if you haven't seen the first one, the first part, check that one out. Hopefully it'll be edifying to you. This is part two, and then this is going in on this page called City Prepping, and they're saying how much time is left, and it's called the Doomsday Clock. And I'm kind of just going in, breaking down the video and filtering it through the scriptures, like we do. So I'm going to start off this one just straight in the book of Second Esdras, since we're going to go in there. Since we're talking about the doomsday, the day of the Lord's fierce wrath, that's coming upon the earth. A lot of people are talking about this because, like what's that mini single song, I Can Feel It in the Air. Or if you go back even to I forgot the original singer of that song, but Mike Tyson used to sing it a lot. He used to come out to his fights. I could feel it in the air. I could feel it in, man. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but they didn't remade that song a couple times. I think Meek Mill just remade that song too. But this is Second Esdras chapter 6. I'll just jump straight into it. Let this play a little bit. Starting at verse 18. Let me get to it. Sorry, I was in First Esdras. Second Esdras chapter 6, starting at verse 18. It says, "And it said, Behold, the day come that I will begin to draw nigh and to visit them that dwell upon the earth." So when the Lord is coming, which Matthew chapter 24 tells us the signs to look for. No man knows the day or the time. The Lord is going to come back like a thief in the night. You know, verse 19 it says, "And will begin to make the questions of them what they be that have hurt unjustly with their unrighteousness, and when the affliction of Sion should be fulfilled." So individually you have people that do that, but as a whole it's the Edomites, the wicked. Now they're the most wicked. All the nations play a part, and they have judgment that's coming to them, but Esau has it the worst. Pursuing the Obadiah chapter 1, he's going to be taken out completely. It says, "And when the world that shall begin to vanish away," so when we start hitting doomsday, all hell breaking loose, shit hits the fan, "shall be finished, then will I show these tokens. The book shall be opened before the firmament, and they shall see all together." And we're seeing that Esau's world, because the earth is going to be here, Revelations 21. But we're seeing the Esau world starting to vanish away. He's trying to hold on the most he can, but you can see him slipping. He's falling. He can't get up. Going back to DMX. It says, "And the children of a year old shall speak with their voices, and the woman with child shall bring forth untimely children of 3 or 4 months old, and they shall live and be raised up. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown," which that we're going to get into that, going into, there's a precept with that, going into Second Esdras chapter 16. "And the full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty," which anytime there's doom or a pandemic or something crazy happen, what do we see first? People go horror, people get scared. And when people get afraid, the first thing people want to do is get two things: food, ammunition. When people get scared as a whole, they stock up on ammunition. That's why you can't find no ammunition. You can't find no 5.56s, no 223s, no 9 millimeters, no 40 cal, 45. You can't find none of that stuff right now, man, because that's what people do. They go get ammunition, and then they go buy food to try to stack up on it so they can sit at home and have as much food as they can. But the scriptures tell us you're gonna have to be like a pilgrim upon earth, which we're gonna get into that. Second Esdras chapter 16, 40, I believe, and no certain dwelling place. 1 Corinthians 4:11. Now it says, let me see back where I was at. It says, "And the storehouse shall suddenly be found empty." Because of what? Famines and inflation and hyperinflation. And the trumpet shall give a sound. Here's Salaki. It says, and the trumpet should give a sound which when every man heareth it, they shall suddenly be afraid. Which goes into here Matthew chapter 24. I did read this in the first part, but I go back into it again. You got here. You got different senses of trumpet. If I could find it, if I could find it. Matthew 24 verse 31, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. So you got the trumpet from the Lord. I think it speaks about that in plenty of books of Revelations. Yeah, you got the trumpets. I think Revelation 7, maybe even Revelations 8. Let me see if I could jump to it just to get some precepts, which I got these in part 1 too. Right, so you got trumpets in that sense, which men are going to be afraid. And let me see. Loud voice. The angels. Okay. Okay, but then you have a trumpet. Then you also got like an alarm against the fenced cities. You got what is it? Every Tuesday of the beginning of a month, you hear that alarm, and it's kind of testing. Well, guess what? That alarm's gonna go off, and guess what? It's not gonna be on a Tuesday. It could fall on Tuesday, but it's gonna be on a random day, and you're gonna be thinking, wait, is it Tuesday? Is it the first Tuesday of the month while the alarm is going off? I know they do that in my city on doing that day. I don't know about other cities, and you're gonna kind of be like, so what's going on? Why the alarm's going off? And that's gonna make people afraid too, twofold. It says 24. At that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies, and the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein. So kind of like Mortal Kombat, right? The movie Mortal Kombat just came out. It's a great trumpet, and then the earth was just pretty much combat. The top warriors from this realm had to fight against the top warriors from that realm. So they read the scriptures and they come up with those ideas for their movies. It says, and the springs of the fountains shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run. It says, whosoever remaineth from all these that I have told thee shall escape and see my salvation. Because remember, Matthew 24, which I had let it go. Let me see if I could jump back to it. Talking about the Israelites, because that's who could be saved. Verse 13, but he that shall, Matthew 24 verse 13, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Saying the same thing. So it says 24, it says 25, whoever remaineth from all these that I have told thee shall escape and see my salvation in the end of your world. So two things. Even if you remain, you're still going to, even if you're not an Israelite, you're still going to see the strangeness of the salvation for the Israelites. And if you are a part of the elect, the 1/3 of Israel, then you're going to be saved. And you're going to see the end of Esau's world, which if you jump back up to verse 9 in 2nd Esdras 6, it says, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of follow. Meaning Esau will be in power. This is kingdom. He would be in rulership, but his world's going to end. And then, of course, Jacob is the beginning of follow it, which is the kingdom of heaven, of course. For the Israelites, that's why it says Jacob. It's reasons for all that. Now, verse 26, it says, and the man that are received shall see it, right? Back verse 25, I also wanted to say that goes to prove even more that there's no through much tribulation you must enter into the kingdom of heaven. You have to go through that tribulation. There's no rapture before the tribulation. You sitting somewhere up in the heavens before all hell break loose and you didn't have to go through it. You're gonna have to go through it. Verse 26, it says, and the man that are received shall see it, who have not tasted death from their birth, and the heart of the inhabitants shall be changed and turned into another meaning. Oh, that's a great precept. I need to I'm gonna mark that one down because I didn't even know that one was in there. Now it's saying, look, man, the man that are received, so the man that gets this salvation, right? It says who have not tasted death from their birth, right? So like I've been born, I haven't tasted death yet. I'm still alive, right? Just like any brother watching this video, you haven't tasted death yet because you're still alive, right? Now it says, and the heart of the inhabitants shall be changed. Now that goes right. I'm gonna have to do a separate video just on this verse because that's a great verse, because that goes directly into Jeremiah 31:31. We get the law, statutes, and commandments in our inward parts. It says, and turned into another meaning. Right? Because we're going to be turned into tweaking an eye. That goes into 1 Corinthians chapter 15. We're going to get those new spiritual bodies. 1 Corinthians 15 breaks down celestial bodies, terrestrial bodies. It breaks down being changed in the twinkling of an eye. The immortal put on the immortal putting on immortality. The corruptible putting on incorruptible. Death being swallowed up in victory. It says, I'm gonna mark that because I'm gonna do another video. It says, for evil shall be put out, and deceit should be clenched, right? Because the kingdom of heaven is going to be holy, right? Especially evil and deceit is going to be clenched from outside of Israel. We're going to be made perfect. That's why we're going to be able to inherit the kingdom. So let's let this play.
Surprisingly to me, the time was left the same, still 100 seconds before midnight, even a year into the COVID-19 crisis. In the bulletin's own words, they indicated, though lethal on a massive scale, this particular pandemic is not an existential threat. Its consequences are grave and will be lasting, but COVID-19 will not obliterate civilization, and we expect the disease to recede eventually. Still, the pandemic serves as a historic wake-up call, a vivid illustration that national governments and international organizations are unprepared to manage nuclear weapons and climate change, which currently pose existential threats to humanity, or the other dangers, including more virulent pandemics and next-generation warfare that could threaten civilization in the near future. The Doomsday Clock is a great metaphor to help us assess looming threats, but its efficacy as an accurate tool is questionable. One of the biggest complaints is that it is a mere theoretical tool to help scientists and world leaders visualize threats, and it encapsulates humanity's tendency toward historical pessimism. The bulletin is also criticized for being so theoretical in neither explaining nor attempting to quantify their methodology, which is a very hallmark of good scientific analysis. If we take it at its face value, though, as it was intended, merely a theoretical tool to illustrate our current position on the timeline of human existence, we would still be wise to heed some of the same indicators that these leading scientific minds use to develop their theories. There is no denying that the threat of mass extinction and weapons and nuclear proliferation has increased in the last decade alone. The possibility of a large, high-altitude electromagnetic pulse attack has risen exponentially, as Iran and Korea have developed longer-range missile capabilities. Extreme and erratic weather patterns have become more prevalent in recent years, defying modern records and forcing us to turn to scientifically assess core samples to find arrival in time. Today's conflicts between nations are not as transparent as the Axis and Allied forces of World War II. Clandestine operators, state-sponsored terrorist organizations, organized hacking endeavors, even sabotage are all the behind-the-scenes weapons of many nations as they struggle to bring themselves power by destroying their perceived enemies. Technology continues to marginalize humanity through automation and artificial intelligence. Precious resources are consumed and not replenished at the same rate of consumption.
See, and he's breaking it all down because what have we seen? We've seen what hacks that's causing, gas famines and shortages and stuff like that. But even going to Matthew 24, it tells you rumors of wars. I mean, you get an EMP, the internet being shut down, the famine of the word. You get nation against nation. You see famines, pesticides. You see earthquakes in diverse places, like he said, that comes from the weather changes and stuff like that. So they don't know the time. No man knows the time of the day. They just guessing. So like he says, it's a theory, but we just know the season. We know the signs. We have a science that tells us, okay, we're getting to the end. But we know more than they know because we're the prophets back. But at the same time, we know one major thing that tells us the end is coming. And that major thing is the Israelites waking up. Ezekiel chapter 37, right? Matthew 24, verse 14. This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto the nation, and then shall the end come. So we're actually doing that work. We're the ones preaching the gospel, just like this video I'm making. This is a part of that, a part of the body. So that's how we know the end is coming. They don't want to admit, the elites know at the top who the Israelites are, or are they watching us wake up and return back to our Lord? So they know the end is coming too. This is 2 Esdras chapter 7, since we talking about doomsday, right? Verse 42 says, he answered me and said, this this present life is not the end where much glory does abide. Therefore have they prayed for the weak. It says, but the day of doom, so we talking about doomsday, shall be the end of this time. So there is going to be a doomsday at the end of Esau's time. You know, going back to 2nd Esdras chapter 6 and 9. It says the end of his world. Esau's the end of the world. It says in the beginning of the immortality for to come, wherein corruption is past, and temperance is at an end, infidelity is cut off, righteousness is grown, and truth is sprung up, which goes back to 2nd Esdras 6 and 9. The Esau's the end of the world. Then you got righteousness that's going to be grown and truth sprung up. In the kingdom of heaven, we're going to be righteous with truth. You know, those new bodies, those perfect bodies, the law, statutes, commandments in our inward part. It says, verse 45, then shall no man be able to save him that is destroyed, nor to oppress him that has gotten a victory, right? Because we're going to have that power. You know, our enemy's going to behold us. What it talks about in Wisdom of Solomon chapter 5, you know, the strangeness of our salvation. And then if the Lord destroying you, who could stand? You know, Revelations, here, let me jump to it. The end of Revelations chapter 6, verse 17, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who should be able to stand? That's simple. Verse 46, back in 2nd Esdras chapter 7, it says, and I answered then and said, this is my first and last saying, that it had been better not to have given the earth unto Adam, or else when it was given to him, to have restrained him from sinning, because this day is going to be a day like never before, a time like never before. We might as well get it since we're talking about the doomsday. Daniel chapter 12. I could jump to it. Yeah, you hear those pages flipping, because I ain't had this written down. This all off top of the head, man. Not bragging about it. I just be, you know how Jake is. We just like to talk a little shit. But Daniel chapter 12 verse 1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, and great prince, the great prince was standing for the children of thy people, and there should be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. At that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. So we talking about the same event, the same doomsday event, man. Shit hits the fan, all hell breaking loose, whatever you want to call it. The end of a time. You know, we talking about this same event that's going to be a time of trouble, Jacob's trouble, like never before. But it says, look, the people should be delivered, everyone that should be found written in the book, which goes back into 2nd Esdras 7, when we went to verse 45, and it says, then shall no man be able to save him that is destroyed, nor to oppress him that has gotten the victory, because their name was found written in the book, so they get that salvation. So let's let this play a little bit more.
Socioeconomic disparities grow exponentially year over year, which leads to an increasingly more disillusioned and desperate population. One of the most striking additions to the Doomsday Clock's bulletin is what they are calling an infodemic. That is a proliferation across all mediums, but especially the internet, of so much information, both false, true, and hypothetical, that people turn away from scientific-based inquiry and determine their facts from contradictory narratives based upon ideological lines. While that's not necessarily an existential threat to humanity, it does port in an intensification of future events. The bulletin considers it a threat multiplier. The misinformation in the infodemic throws fuel to the fire of conflict and increases partisanship and the violent threat to a social order through the dehumanization of political rivals and the radicalization of the mentally unstable. They write in the bulletin that social media, search engines, always-on mobile computing technologies, and other technology applications have exploited human cognitive propensities to be...
And that's what I wanted to go into. I forgot to mention that all this technology is leading up, all this digital, the internet of all things, is leading up to the mark of the beast, which is the microchip. That's another big major sign. The Israelites waking up to who they are and returning back to our Lord, which precept just came to mind. I'm going to get it, because remember, I'm not holding no punches, but I'm going to have to come back and do a part 3 so I don't make these too long, man. What's that? Hosea chapter 5, verse 15. And I will go and return to my place till they acknowledge their offenses and seek my face. In their affliction, they will seek me early. But once we do acknowledge, which we are, then the Lord is going to return and put those curses on our enemies. Another precept just came to mind. Look at the spirit, man. I took the time out to really sit down and said, look, man, I'm going to sit down and make this all. I'm going to do parts. I'm going to put effort into it. I'm not going to hold any punches. And the spirit really works with you when you really dedicate yourself. What did Mayweather just got done fighting Sunday? What did he say? Hard work, dedication. Hard work, dedication. So you have to, this has to be your first love, man. You got to put hard work and dedication into this, you know. Study to show yourself approved. Meditate day and night. This is Deuteronomy chapter 30, just like Hosea 5 and 15. Verse 1, it says, and it should come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whether the Lord thy God has driven thee, and shall return unto the Lord thy God. So just like Hosea 5:15, we return, we acknowledge our offense, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children with all thy heart and with all thy soul, that then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all nations where the Lord thy God has scattered thee. That's important because the Israelites were scattered. It's not that all nations and anybody could be saved, but it's the Israelites amongst those other nations where they've been scattered. It's going to be saved. Now that goes back into Matthew 24. Since we're talking about this, let me go ahead and pull it, which I did pull in on part 1, but we're going to pull it again, man. Now, Matthew chapter 24, right? Verse 31. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of the trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect, the elect, from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Why? Because we were scattered. So from the four ends to the four winds of one end of heaven to the other, because we were scattered amongst the nations. So this pretty much breaks down, it proves to you exactly who salvation for. It says his elect. That's who he's coming to go save. And then Deuteronomy 30 gives you more insight on who that elect is. It's the Israelites. Now, if you even go to Revelation chapter 7, which we keep going to, but that's just what the Spirit want us to do. Verse 3, it says, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of God in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there was sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. It says of the children of Israel for a reason. It's for the Israelites. Now, back in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 4, it says, if any of thou be driven out to the utmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. Because if you understand Deuteronomy 28, the curses that was put on Israelites, we would be scattered amongst all the nations. So that's why the Lord has to go to all the nations to save them. Like he told his disciples, go not into the way of the Gentiles, but the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But we were being called the Gentiles. Here, let me see if I can find that one off the top of my head. Oh man, what is that? It's in the book of Corinthians. Let's think it down, right? Is it Corinthians? 1 Corinthians chapter 12. Yep, verse 1. It says, now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I will not have you ignorant. Ye know that ye were Gentiles. When Paul's saying brethren, he's an Israelite. You know, Benjamin. So he's talking about his Israelites by blood, by flesh. He says, ye know that ye were carried away into these dumb idols, even as ye were led. Ye know that ye were Gentiles carried away into these dumb idols, even as you. So he's talking to fellow Israelites saying, look, you were Gentiles, proving that the Israelites were called Gentiles. Now, prove that Paul's talking about his brothers according to the flesh. When he says brethren, this is Romans chapter 10, a quick drive-by real quick. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer for God, to God for Israel is that they might be saved. See, to God for Israel is that they might be saved. And he says, brethren, my heart's desire. He's talking to Israelites by blood, by flesh. It's for the Israelites that were scattered amongst the other nations, and the elect amongst those Israelites. At that, Romans chapter 9, verse 1. I say the truth in Christ, I lie not. My conscience also bearing me witness in the Holy Ghost, that I have great heaviness and continued sorrow in my heart. For I could wish myself was accursed from on Christ for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh, who are Israelites. So it's over with. He says, my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to who pertaineth adoption, right? So these things pertaineth to us, meaning it's only for us. And the glory in the covenant. So in order for you to be saved, you're definitely going under the new covenant, but the covenants pertain to the Israelites. So who's that salvation pertains to? The Israelites. In the giving of the law, because the laws was given to us, in the service of God, and the promises, which the promises goes into the kingdom of heaven, and the promise of salvation, which goes all pertains to the Israelites. It's game over. Back in Deuteronomy chapter 30. Here, let me see if I could find that precept. I could find it here. Yep, this is Deuteronomy chapter 28, I believe is verse 64. It says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among the people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Which makes us what? Which once we start serving these other gods, we will be like the Gentiles, which will have us being called Gentiles. So now you hear the whole picture is put together. We were called Gentiles because we were serving their other gods, which we just read about that in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. And we were scattered amongst all the people. Now you get the full story. If you jump back to verse 46, it says, and they shall be upon you thee for a sign and a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. The curses upon our seed forever. That's how you know who the true Israelites are. That's how we know that we're the true Israelites, because we fit the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28. Now back in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 5, it says, and the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it. Revelation chapter 21 tells you that. It says, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers, which means that there's going to be sex in the kingdom. We're going to have wives, we're going to have sex with them, and we're going to multiply. It says, and the Lord thy God will circumcise thy heart, Jeremiah 31, and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. Jeremiah 31, starting at verse 31. And the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thy enemies, the other nations. Not save them, but put the curses on them, and on them that hate thee, which persecute thee, which is all the other nations. There's no other nation that's trying to get salvation for us or trying to help us as a people. They all hate us, and they're all against us, and they have a judgment, because that's the way that the Lord set it up. I don't want this video to go too long, so I'll leave it there, and then I'll come back with a part 3. I want to say hopefully this has been edifying. I'm going to say salvation to the elect. Shalom.